was a little cold. When you were coming in, were both double doors open or just one? Both of them? You want me to close one? The only reason I have both of them open is because one of them keeps closing so no one can get in. We'll leave it open, it's fine. We'll just, not close it, but kind of trying to preserve a little bit of heat that we have to see. Freezing it, okay. Well, let's jump into it. We're going to prolong it. Now, who hasn't been here before? New? Okay. Okay, first time. Appreciate it. How you doing, brother? All right. This isn't working. What's going on, man? So y'all got to bear with me a little bit. This is losing its battery. First thing we want to do, pay respect and homage to the ancestors and the historians and scholars who put all that information in those books so that we can examine those things, study them, and get an idea of what our ancestors accomplished, what kind of culture they had, what type of history they had. And that's our connecting piece. Dr. Diop says, if you start studying your culture and you embrace your culture, you automatically become an African cultural citizen, even though you've never been there before or speak any indigenous African languages. No doubt about it, you are African. The more you study, the more African you get. Absolutely. Are with me on that. Because a lot of times they try to use that against us and try to say, oh, you weren't born there. There's a separation. Right? But there's actually a real connection. And of course, you can always look at our skin tone and you know what it is. You know where I hail from. All right? So also, Brother Scam over there, Pastor Williamson, and Elder Wallace Pruitt were instrumental in putting this class together. So I always want to give them props and respect for what they did when we first started everything out. Always want to do that. And then this ancient African principle right here, Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. I love this thing. When I first read about it, I love it. It definitely eliminates a lot of the issues. Just by practicing this right here, you eliminate a lot of the issues that America caused you to suffer from, like loneliness. How can you be lonely when everyone makes up who you are? And they're strengthening you and you're strengthening them. Ubuntu. Hard to be lonely and depressed when this is in operation. Hard to be selfish and egotistical when you know this truth. Right? No such thing as self-made. That's an American concept. That's garbage. No such thing. Everything is interrelated and interconnected in the spiritual world and in the physical world. All things connect. There is no self-made. Someone helped you. Someone assisted you. Someone supported you. Someone lent to you. Someone did all types of things concerning you. No self-made. America likes to do that with that narcissistic type of attitude. Just me, huh? Yeah, I did it all by myself. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. And with this principle, you cannot be egotistical. It's all about strengthening each other. I got you, you got me. Tabitha, I got you, you got me. That quiz at the end of the class, right? Next to Tabitha, we're going to take a quiz. Y'all don't mind, right? All right. So Ubuntu, I am because we are. Important principle. All right. And then we always read this particular quote from Dr. Amos Wilson. Very important because we're not here just to kick it and have some fun. Right? Waiting for the Duke of North Carolina game to come on. If our study of black history is merely an exercise in feeling good about ourselves, then we'll die feeling good. We must look at the lessons that history teaches us, understand their value, the tremendous value, and then study it for the regaining of our power. That's the whole point. Starting with definition and identity. I'm African. Boom. Very important principle. And we'll start to get into why that's important when we get to phase 2. We'll start breaking down exactly how we went from on top to down below, to having a dark age on our country. Y'all with me? Regaining our power. For education, not about gaining real power or being miseducated and misled. So when black history comes up, if we're only starting with slavery, that ain't real power. All it is celebrating how we were dominated. Because on one side, we're trying to find something positive of when we overcame slavery. True. True. But you got to get the context of who we were before that. Because slave history isn't a study about who we are. It's a study about who they are. Their character. Very important to know that. When you study slave history, that's not about us. That's about them. How they work. And once you start to go down that type of study, and you start going down that road, being an American takes on a different context. I'm not so quick to say I'm American. I take a look at American history, what it did to other people, who actually became American. Can't say I can identify with that. Y'all with me on that? I'm not trying to attack anybody's patriotism today, but just know patriotism is an illusion. It's a trick. We won't get into that right now. Keep the pressure. It's working fine now. Okay, cool. All right. We did this week 1, kind of giving an overview of what to expect concerning the African history course. Kind of want to give an update on where we're at, how far we've come. Move this over a little bit. So we've covered, if you've been here, African origins of humanity. We did first cultures and civilizations. Lance Kirkland, what's going on?
I'm good. How about you?
All right, pretty good. Nile Valley empires, Carthage. We did the African Constitution, African spirituality, and then we pretty much almost covered, only got about 3 or 4 of the empires of the golden age of Africa to go out of the 21. And so these 3 areas right here in yellow are what we have left. African presence in Europe. Asia will be a 2-part series, 2 weeks in a row. We got America, African mathematics and science. We're actually going to do a little bit of African mathematics today, so go ahead and get ready. Pencil and paper, get ready, it's coming. Also, the beauty, power, and intelligence of black women. Very important while we single out and really pay homage to this area right here, because we live in a Western society that says women aren't capable of leading. You're too emotional. You don't have logic, so we got to put you down here. You're not fit to lead, let the man do it. Western culture pushes that real strong, to the point where some women even feed into it. We talked a little bit about that last night. Who was with us last night at the Tabernacle? I know you were there. He's going to get us to take the quiz. All right, but this is what we have left. These 3, especially beauty, power, intelligence, black women, and then these areas right here. Now we're going to cover European thought behavior. That'll be a 2-part series. Dark Age of Africa, how we went from the top. Exactly, how did they manipulate us? How did they do? How did they get in there? Systems of oppression, so when they got in there, what type of systems of oppression did they have in place? Are they still in place? I said yes. We talked about feudalism the other day. Who was here? Feudalism, yeah. It never went anywhere. The African American, people might get mad at me on that one, so anybody apologize in advance. All right? The African American, a.k.a. the colored Negro, don't get mad. You might want to skip that week, it's no problem. And anthropology. Anthropology won't be a separate class, it'll kind of be infused into everything, because this is the attitude that they use. This is the science behind the racist philosophy that they have. That you're fundamentally, scientifically insufficient. In the dominance of body and mind, you're on the bottom and they're on the top. This is what they use. That's why they came up with this particular science. So we'll kind of go over all of this coming up in phase 2, which is in a, after we finish this, we go into this part. And then again, I think I'm going to have, because some people are brand new, and they found out about the 14 out of 20, so they're trying to figure out how can they make up. I know we are starting a class March the 20th on Mondays in Hidden Valley at Mayfield Memorial Baptist Church. So that'll be kind of a reboot. So if you missed some of these beginning topics that we hit on, you can come on the Monday, still same time, 7 o'clock to 8:30. Again, Hidden Valley neighborhood, the Mayfield Memorial Baptist Church, right there off Sugar Creek. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Sugar Creek? Okay, cool. So if you get a chance, you can do that. If you can't do that, I'm talking to Pastor Williamson about getting a Saturday, but if we do a makeup, it's going to be like super duper ridiculous makeup. Like 8 hours straight. Who's down? Who's down? I expect you to hype on that. But I mean, we gotta go all the way. So bring some water, take a nap, and don't do those not the powder things, but this is vitamin B, B12, B6, something like that, and we can go through it. But I gotta get it confirmed with Pastor Williamson. But so we'll see about that. But if we do it, it's gonna be long. So just prepare yourself and don't try to come in and leave early. Nah, I'm locking you in. Trump wants to build a wall to keep everyone out. Actually, it's to keep you in. Too much? Yeah. We'll get off of that. So phase 2 coming up. We're gonna get into all of this right here, and this is what to expect. Anyone have any questions or comments about this topic we've already covered before? Anybody want to mention anything or something? Let me ask you a question. Who was the empire? Come on, Tabitha. Who was the empire that went and got the plant, the indigenous plant from America, and then brought it back and used it to pave their streets? Oh, man. It was the queen. Anybody remember?
Molly? I'm saying Molly.
I'm hurt, man. I remember this This is the same question I asked last year. The same one. Some of them were in the class last year. you just Google it?
Oh, no. Molly.
Google it.
Molly.
Molly?
Yeah.
Nope. But Molly did go to, it was a queen. It absolutely was a queen. Oh, we're not moving to the beginning. Nope. I'm a little tight.
Was it the Queen of Carthage?
Queen of Carthage? We ain't moving. We gonna say that. Hell no, y'all can stop. Take your time. We waiting on the next. Come on, take your time. I want the empire that did it. Not even the individual, the empire that did it. Who went to America, got a plant, brought it back to the African continent, and used it to pave the streets? Do not Google it.
Yoruba?
There you go. Say it again.
Yoruba?
Yes, Yoruba. I cannot believe it. All my life, I had to Can anyone else name another empire that went to America before the Europeans?
Mali.
Mali, yeah. Anybody remember the person that went from Mali? Who was it? What was his name? Come on, the second, but that's good. That's what I'm talking about. Abubakar the second. I'm gonna stop, cause y'all, man. That's why I have those sheets out. Who? I thought someone else said something. Okay. All right. So today we're gonna do a shortened version. I couldn't put medieval Nubia on today's schedule. Number one, I didn't want to shortchange it because I didn't feel like I had a proper amount of information that I felt confident about. And then number two, we're just going to deal with this right here. Potent but beautiful. That's what we're calling today's class. All right? So Ethiopia, or Abyssinia, let me talk about Abyssinia real quick too. I was trying to figure out when exactly they started calling the area of Ethiopia Abyssinia. And it's really up in the air based on the information I was given. Even from the book when we ruled, I couldn't quite pinpoint when they started calling it Abyssinia. I'm going to go ahead and say it's an indigenous name, because I'm not quite sure. But when you say Abyssinia, most historians understand that to be Ethiopia. Now with me. And Ethiopia, of course, is not the indigenous term for that area. That's a Greek word that means burnt face. Now when you see Ethiopia, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes, it's going to mean different things. So you have to understand the context when they use the term Ethiopia, because it refers to a lot of different things. The main work we're going to do, though, is going to be in that area and also highlight Axum. Y'all with me on that? All right. Let me go back. I can't believe y'all didn't know the empire that wouldn't pave the streets. Come on. I thought that was a big deal. I don't want to wrote it down. I'm hurt, man. You know what? We're going to go ahead and cancel for the day. Y'all go ahead. I'm disappointed. All right. So, Ethiopia. When you start talking about Ethiopia, reminder from week 1, Ethiopia is where they found Richard Leakey, paleoanthropologist, found the oldest bones of modern man right here. Homo Ethiopia. Oldest bones of modern man, 195,000 years old. 195,000 years old, African bones. African people, black people, melanated. 195,000 years ago. Oldest bones of any white person ever found were in Europe. 20,000 years old. They must have been the first people in Europe. No. Oldest bones ever found in Europe, period, were 40,000 years old. 40,000 years old. African people. African people. Oldest bones ever found in Asia. Oldest bones. Who remembers? It's from week 1, so we might have to jog your memory a little bit. It's okay if you don't know this one.
Page 45.
Page 45, you said?
45,000.
45,000?
95.
95,000. There you go. 95,000 years old. Oldest Asian bones ever found? Less than 20,000 years old. Quick math. That means for the first 175,000 years of modern man's existence, one more time, the first 175,000 years of modern man's existence, the only people on the planet were black. Facts. Don't look at me. Richard Leakey. And his grandfather too, Louis Leakey. That's a big, listen, that changes a whole lot of things right there. The narrative changes big time when you start talking about the first people for the first 175,000 years were African people, and then notice they're on different continents. So they didn't stay isolated in one area. They tried to isolate us, or you were just in Africa. We were everywhere. And that's important. That's an important foundation to set. Because that's going to set the tone for other continents we're going to explore. Y'all with me on that? I'm feeling kind of good. I was a little tired in the beginning. I'm starting to get up a little bit. Understand? Maybe it's the sweater. I don't know. All right. So when you start talking about Ethiopia, Remember I talked about it means different things. At one point, Ethiopia described the entire continent. So when they said Ethiopia, they meant the entire thing. All of that. Other times, it meant Ethiopia, not just Africa. It meant, this is a little weak, this almost dead. It meant all the way towards the west too. Middle East, all the way over to India. When they said Ethiopia. Depending on which historical document you're talking about. All of that was called Ethiopia. And of course, we're going to deal with the main region of Ethiopia today, which is right in here. This is where we're going to be doing some work. And of course, Ethiopia is referring to African people. Not the only word they use, of course. What are some other words they use? Sudan. Sudan's talking about African people. Moor. Moor is another word used for African people. Any others? Remember any others?
Libyan?
Libya. Anybody else? No problem. Berber, I've heard Bantu. A lot of different words referring to African people. Some of those words aren't exactly friendly words. Dr. Ben talks about how the word Bantu is actually a disrespectful word. I'm still researching it, but he says that's a derogatory term, Bantu. And we're still researching that to find out, make sure. So Dr. Ben knows way more than me, so I'm going to lean toward Dr. Ben on that. Y'all with me? All right, so when you say Ethiopia, make sure you get the context of what they mean by Ethiopia. Okay. All right, so now, anybody recognize what this is? I didn't put the name on their intentions. Anybody? Who knows where this is from, where this is at? Say it again?
Kemet.
Kemet, correct. Who built it? Listen, I have trouble saying it too. Hatshepsut built this right here. What does it have to do with Ethiopia? Because in this particular monument that she built, inside is a relief that talks about the ancient Cometians, the Kemetic people of Kemet, going to the land of Punt. You've heard of land of Punt before, right? Land of Punt, the majority of historians and scholars agree that Ethiopia is part of the land of Punt that she's talking about, where they went to. Resource-rich land of Punt. Strong empire, land of Punt. This is back in the 18th dynasty, when we start talking about Kemet. So there was an empire. When you start studying Kemet, just know down south in the land of Punt, black people were doing great things there too. And they went there and traded with those people. Y'all with me? All right, talking about the early history of Ethiopia. First people, they had trade relations with people of Kemet. And so we say land of Punt. It's done. But all up in here is what we're talking about. Down from Somalia, across with Yemen, southern parts of Arabia, Eritrea, today's Eritrea, Ethiopia, all of this area here considered the land of Punt by most historians and scholars. You're with me on that? Okay. Now, this is not the actual Queen of Sheba, but I picked it because it helps to illustrate the point, bring it home a little bit. So when we're talking about the Queen of Sheba, this is probably your most famous Ethiopian figure, the Queen of Sheba, called Makeda. And in Southern Arabia, in other texts, you'll hear her called Belkis. Belkis, and that's referring to the Queen of Sheba. She's around 1005 BC. Take a look at the size of the empire. When you start talking about the Queen of Sheba, the Sheba Empire, the Ethiopian Empire. We're talking about parts of Upper Egypt, Ethiopia, of course, is the centerpiece, all into Arabia, to Syria, Armenia, and India was the vast network of her empire. The Queen of Sheba, Makeda. Women aren't fit to lead, they said. They're too emotional. That's what they said, right? Seems to me like she handled things pretty well, in my opinion. Take a look at the trade network. They had a trade network. So all those regions they had trade with, plus other relationships with other people. Business sense. They don't like to attribute us with business sense. And any other kind of sense you want to put in there. Business sense. She had a chief chief merchant that she had. You can call it a chief financial officer, CFO if you will, named Tamrin. This brother was on point. He's the one who helped set up all these different relationships in all these different areas so that Ethiopia would rise financially, prosperous, have everything they need. Tamrin was his name. And Ethiopian merchants, when you start looking at history and combining the business people of this particular empire right here, they're among the top. And we'll talk about more in a few minutes. Some more merchants in the African empire. We'll talk about some more. But those Ethiopian merchants, along with Tamrin, some of the top business minds in history. Very wealthy. Again, you usually don't associate business acumen with African people, not in the Western culture. They don't give us any credit. This is why we need our history. And these gentlemen were on point. She was on point. Absolutely. If you wanted more information on the Queen of Sheba, the Kibber Nagas has, it's a historical book filled with the documents chronicling the story, because she's most popular for associating with King Solomon of the Bible and having a son named Melanik. Jamaicans, where I'm from, were real big on Haile Selassie, who's supposed to come from that line. Real big, even though he flew to the country and said, I'm not the, what is it? I don't think they call him the Christ, but something real close to it.
Lion of Judah.
There you go, Lion of Judah. He tried to tell him, you're going too far, but Jamaica was too strong. We ain't trying to hear that.
Actually, the book of Song of Solomon in the Bible was written after her.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until Solomon met her that he acquired all of the wealth that he had.
So they say, there's so much controversy with it, but I'm with you. I'm gonna focus on the Queen. She was on point.
Right.
Now, if Solomon happened to get on point before or after, that's on him.
Right.
But she was on point. We know that.
Right. He didn't get on point till he met her.
I'm gonna go with that story. That's fine by me. That's fine by me. So that's what she's most popular for. But don't overlook her trade acumen, her trade business, and the vast size of her empire that she had. But let them limit it to just Ethiopia, because there's way more extensive than that. Y'all with me? Okay. So after the empire controlled by the Queen of Sheba, we move forward a little bit to about 400, 500 BC, and this is the Temple of Makwa, and this is the centerpiece. This is the centerpiece of the city of Yeha. City of Yeha in Ethiopia. Now, who's heard of Michael Jackson? So when Michael Jackson in his song wanted to start something, and that little chorus goes yeehaw like that, and I first discovered this, I was like, wait a minute, is Michael Jackson trying to like sneak in some type of conscious thing like that? That we should study yeehaw in Ethiopia? And then what's the next part? Like what does he say? Makusa? What is it? Yeah, that whole thing. So I'm sitting there thinking like, yo, he's put like some cold in the song. I gotta decode the message. But then I hear an old song from Al Green. And Al Green does it first. So Michael Jackson kind of took what Al Green did, amplified it a little bit, and I crushed my whole conspiracy theory. My game conscious. But yeah, so this is supposed to be the temple right here. The inscriptions inside the temple and all around connect with southern Arabia. That's important. Because the first Arabs, the first people to be in Arabia were African people, black people. And we're going to get to that more when we start talking about the African presence in Asia, and we start going from the Middle East all the way over in a couple of weeks. But the first people of Arabia, first Arabic people, black people. No coincidence that the Arabic language comes from Africa, and not just Africa, specifically Ethiopia. Proven in the 1974 Cairo Symposium by Dr. Sheikh Diop and Theophile Obenga. Proven. And not just Arabic. Remember, we talked about this before, I don't know if you remember. Not just Arabic, Hebrew. Hebrew is an African language. Aramaic, African language. Proven at that same 1974 Cairo Symposium. That changes the game on a lot of stuff. If we're talking about Hebrew as an African language, created by Africans.
Semitic.
Come on. If we're talking about Aramaic, is an African language created by Africa. Africans. What does that mean about the people? See? We're going to do a whole class on this, Martin. We're going to do a whole class on next cycle. We're going to start talking about who the original people were from these different groups. And I'm not trying to insult anybody at all or be disrespectful. But I think we got to research the truth, and we start talking about the Jewish 1974. Boom, Cairo Symposium.
Yeah.
He went unchallenged. He couldn't handle Dr. Diop and Dr. Obenga. Could not handle it. To this day, they can't refute the evidence that they put in front of those scientists that day. Can't do it. He also proved that the people of Kemet were black, African people.
Right.
Unrefutable. Or is it irrefutable? Irrefutable. All right? So, when we start connecting Arabia and Africa, they go together. Arabia influenced by African people. And again, when we start talking about the African presence in Asia, when they start having a dispute of what's an original Arabian, how to be true Arabic, you're going to see some people who, you know, have they bleached skin? So some of them are putting tar on their skin to get blacker. Because to be black is to be a true Arab. Shouldn't have gave y'all that. Should have waited a couple weeks. It's all good. All right, we'll keep going. So now we've dealt with the early history, the early history. Now we're going to fast forward into the Axum period. Into the Axum period. What time do I have? Just so I can monitor my time.
7:26.
7:26. Okay, good. We're making good time. Easy one. All right. So when we start talking about Axum, we're dealing with, and of course this isn't the greatest map in the world, right? Internet stuff, so you're not going to get the exact proportion. But this right here in the blue is mainly what we're dealing with. The books that I've read say they covered even more area than that at different periods of time and controlled larger areas, and we can work with this right here. Of course, you see the Romans at this particular standpoint had already infiltrated Kemet and taken over, and we see Persia to that top right. All right? Axum. So now, Axum, 100 BC comes along. Axum becomes the main capital city of that area. Look at the second line. 50 AD, Xoscles is the first to take the title of what? Say it. Say it. Niggas Nagaste. 50 AD, first time you hear the word. What does it mean? King of Kings. King of Kings. Let's talk about context real quick. Because in the Western world, there's a different version of that word. It means something totally different. And they assigned it to a group of people for them to identify as. But in antiquity, the original word, niggas Nagaste, King of Kings. First person to take it. Xoscles, 50 AD. Niggas means king. You might have heard rumor or you heard that. It's facts. One thing that the Western culture will do is take something, completely spin it to exploit you, bring you down, tear into your identity, get you to think of yourself as less than, minority-like, insufficient. Start getting that truth though, Lance. They can't handle it. Right? That's right. Axum begins to rise during this time period. They again have a major trade network set up. Adelaide is the main city as far as port-wise, as far as trade network-wise. They have trade with Kush to the north, the Egypt, lands in Egypt, the Romans, Arabia again, India, Sri Lanka, and all the way to China is what Axum has. Massive trade network. Again, it's the Axum merchants, the business acumen on display once again. And when you start talking about Africans in business, which doesn't get mentioned a lot, you have to mention the Axum merchants, the earlier Ethiopian merchants. You have to mention the Wangarian merchants of both Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Probably the greatest businessmen of all time. Taking a look at the wealth that was amassed by Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Each time, those were the richest countries in the world, based on the business acumen of the Wangarian merchants. Then you add Swahili, the merchants of Swahili. We'll talk about that in the next couple of weeks. But when you start talking business acumen, you have to start associating that with African people. Tops of what they do. And that's why I brought books the other day with the Dictionary of Finance and Investment Terms to raise your business acumen. This book, I can't remember how much I paid for this book, like 75 cents at Goodwill, if I'm not mistaken. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, right? A couple of words in this book. And Robert Kiyosaki says, I can show you your net worth by showing you your financial vocabulary. Your financial vocabulary is equivalent to your net worth. How many words, out of these 3,000 words in that book, how many financial words do you know? You got to get that business acumen up. And our people had that. Absolutely had that. Now with me on that. Okay. So because they were so popular, you have the Axum coin currency. This was currency around the world. People in different countries took Axum gold coins and silver coins. That money is good here. We know your reputation, we know what you're about. We'll take those coins, highly tradable on the market, on the world market. Axum coins. Take a look at that in a second. Also had the Agilist inscription. This is basically like an African constitution that they went by. Established by the niggas Nagaste, in charge at that particular time. Now the king who put this in order, it wasn't Xoscles, this was afterwards in 150 AD. They don't have the name, the specific name, so I can't give you that. But this was definitely the order of the day. Right here. Y'all with me so far? Here's a picture of the coins they used. On the top is the original coins. On the bottom is when King Zana came along And we'll talk about him in a second. Then we're really going to get loose and funky with a particular topic. And I want you to speak your mind when we get to it. And let me just say this too. Everyone has a right to their opinion, so don't get mad at anybody. What you mean? Don't shout at anybody. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. So, top part is the original coins. I'm already excited about it. On the bottom is the gold coins, King Xana. If you notice, you can know where I'm going right here. If you look at right here, that's a cross, and that's a cross right there. So when King Xana comes along, something happens. All right, so he jumps in. Here we go. King Xana, go back.
But you see the original one got the crescent. That.
Where?
Up top. Up
And that's
top.
not
Very
there.
top.
Very top. What top is it?
Right there?
Yeah. Crescent in the
Oh,
morning.
yeah. Get ready. Get your opinion ready. You ready? Listen, I got you. Scam, I'm ready. So here he comes on the scene, 350 AD. Watch out. Now he builds, before we can get to it, he builds, this is a remake of the Ta'aga Miriam. That's a castle that he had built at the time. Again, we don't associate black people with castles. We absolutely were the castle makers in antiquity. We talk about the Moors. Who was here with the Moors? Several castles built by the Moors, exactly, palaces, etc., etc. He also builds the first cathedral of St. Mary of Zion, so you know where I'm going. This is the oldest cathedral in the world. Oldest cathedral in the world. Oh, she's tuning up. Christianity becomes the official state religion under King Xana. Important to note, King Xana established it, not a foreign group coming in colonizing, which was going to happen in the year 14 and 1500s, right, starting with the Portuguese. Now with me. Portuguese did some serious work. I had a friend who just went to Portugal yesterday. I was like, why are you going to Portugal? Of all places. They've done some serious damage to our people. Under King Xana, and with Christianity as the top religion, because Africa can make anything work, Axum is one of the top 3 powers in the world, along with Rome and Persia. Later on, Kushan will come, but they wouldn't have the kind of power that Axum had. So top 3 powers in the world under King Xana, who makes Christianity, which was already in the country before this, but he establishes it as the first state religion. And I want you to pay attention to the military-wise to see whether or not they really focused on that whole turning of the cheek doctrine they're trying to get us to believe in. Well, actually it worked. They really didn't practice that with their military. To this day, I'll save it to the end. I'll save it to the end. But he also comes up with Ge'ez, an Ethiopic language. Started by King Xana. He starts that language. I'm going to go ahead and get to it. Let's do it. How you doing? All right. I'm just going to let it sit right there. So this right here, this is the oldest picture in the world of Jesus Christ, right there. Oldest picture in the world, which is in Egypt to this day. Oldest picture in the world. First church ever created, 42 AD in Egypt. First church. These 2 pictures right here, this one, Jesus Christ and his disciples. This one, Abraham and his son Isaac, found in Europe, in the catacombs in Rome. 4th century. So before there was all this whole whitewashing mix. And we're talking about Hebrews. Uh-oh. Look at you, look. Speak your mind now. You can interrupt me at any time. But you're not going to tell me that white people came up with Christianity. You're not going to do that. They did. They did. I'm not saying Christianity is the right way to go, nothing like that. I just want to put things in its proper place relative to who identified and originated what. Right? So we're talking about Christianity, and if you want to say it came off of Heru, I have no problem with that. No problem at all. But I know when they took this religion right here, and they come around 1,000 years later, 1,500, they whitewashed the entire thing. They even in the beginning, we didn't paint these. They painted, well, not this one. They painted those 2.
Right.
And their catacombs in Rome, Italy.
Right.
On the top, Jesus Christ and his disciples. You can't mistake that. You can't. Go ahead, Eric.
4 things. First of all, Ethiopians. All right, they were from the land. They were turned to what you said, Punt. They were turned to Ethiopia because Egypt is a daughter of Ethiopia.
Correct.
All right, those Abraham came, those were all of Ethiopia. The Ethiopians, they call them the Darwinians. If you ever look up that word, that's Darwinians. They got long hair, black. They come from the part where Abraham came from. All right, my next point, Jesus spent years in Egypt.
Huh?
Remember, Jesus spent his early childhood in Egypt.
Absolutely.
And then second, the first convert in Christianity was an Ethiopian. When you open the Bible, look it up, the oldest manuscript is called Ethiopian Coptic. We miss it. We open the Bible, but don't open the first pages.
That's right.
So in actuality, they telling you, but we miss it because we don't read it. And everything you're saying corroborates itself because Chica Diop had to go back and prove that the ancient Egyptians were black. He used carbon data.
Come on.
He picked it off their skin and proved to them that they were all black folks. So what you're saying is all corroborated, but when they changed the image of God in the 1500s.
Even before that.
Well, yeah,
I was looking at some of their pictures in their church, and sure enough, Jesus ain't dark like this. So I can't figure out exactly when the transition was happening. I can't pinpoint it, but it was before 1500.
They did it
before. See, that's in Isaiah too.
They did it because they had to go to the Catholic Church by that time. Remember, the early popes of the Catholic Church were black. They will never tell you that. But they look up their names. They were. Without black bishops, there would be no Christianity, Bible, and interpretations, and councils, all of that stuff. When they changed, they had to go to the Pope. He changed it because of slavery, because they had to.
Now, when you say Pope, which one are you talking about?
Was it innocent?
Because there's so many different.
It's Pope. They had to go to him in order to get approval to inhumane, make us, how do I say it, animals.
Really?
And yes, and if they wouldn't have did it, they had to go to him first because all these records they had. They knew it, so they had to turn us into animals in order to continue with the transatlantic slave.
But see, I'm talking about way before that. I'm talking about before 325. Before 325 AD, before that,
Right.
somewhere in there, this started. Now, it didn't happen in Africa at first, but in Europe, and around that time, because first of all, Christianity was illegal in Europe.
Right.
Right? It was illegal for the first 300 years.
Right.
But somewhere along that line, they started to change. The white man decided, I'm God. That's what he decided, right?
But see,
so I want to know, and I haven't been able to find it, I want to know when that transition happened. Because in Ethiopia, in those same churches that I went to,
Right.
the images aren't all the way black.
Right. What they did was, like I said, they had the St. Augustine, when you hear
I
St.
remember him,
Augustine,
yes.
Tertullian. But they had, when they brought the people together, and they decided they had to interpret, how can I say this, the godness of Jesus. All right? They had to
I remember they had that, his nature
Right.
was on the chopping block.
The black folks brought the knowledge. They didn't have it.
Right?
They used it as a political means to bring their country together because they saw a rally. They couldn't understand why all
Who's
these
talking about?
nations,
Europeans, right?
Europeans,
Right.
why they rallied around this Christ figure.
Right.
They could not understand that. So instead of using it spiritually, they used it to has power to bring the nation together under one religion. See, they knew nothing about one God.
Talking about the Europeans.
The Europeans
Not at all.
knew nothing about that.
Not at all.
Even in their mythology, they take the ancient Ethiopians and rewrite their names.
Exactly.
And all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
They didn't know that. So what they did, they used it for power to bring their countries together. And they used it as a war cry. And ever since, you hear about the chalice, or I forget the name of it, that they've been searching for. Holy Grail. They use that as a mission, and that they use that so that the military could go in and destroy all of those people. That's the difference. We use it for spirituality. They used it for conquest.
I can't wait till we get to phase 2 and start really digging into what you just said too.
So
It's
that's
not
how.
my
And so when they seen that, because there's a book called Blacks Who Died for Jesus. They all know, scholars all know who it was, but the key power, they got to make you think that God was white, Jesus was white. But even the book of Ezekiel says that God was brown. but only because we don't read. And
See, a
when
lot
we
of times,
look into
But
it-
some of us know. I mean, not all Christians are these naive,
Right,
worshiping
right.
the white Christ. We know.
Right.
We know.
But the psychological effect is we know, but we don't turn.
Right.
That's the difference.
I'm gonna submit this.
You're right.
I'm gonna submit.
We know.
And Ms. Evelyn, you were talking about this last week. I'm gonna submit that the majority of people, black people, believe Jesus was white.
Right. Exactly.
Now we have some new information coming on today. There's been an enlightenment period. But if you go to Africa now, Ms. Evelyn can testify, in their churches, it's white Jesus all over the place. So I think, and this is an uncomfortable subject for some people, which I don't care. We got to deal with it. So yeah, it don't matter. You feel a little wheezy, good. That's what we need. But I'm not trying to convert anybody or push Islam, as we talk about Islam, or push Christianity. I'm not doing any of that. But I think we got to deal with what actually was what back in the day.
But you said it.
And this right here, this is the oldest
Right.
picture
Right.
of Christ. Then you go to Europe and see some of the oldest depictions of Christ in Europe, and you see this. Then you see that transition, 5th century AD, 6th century AD, and all of a sudden, Jesus no longer looks like this. And like you said, they use it as a political tool. And I can't wait till we get to phase 2. And we start talking about how they use things, even the time scan. They start using these things to take the advantage of our people. How much? 742. So I wanted to put this up so we kind of have a dialogue about it.
But you said it 5
Well,
classes
Eric's
ago.
taking off like a time.
I'm sorry. You said it 5 classes ago. They used it for manipulation. What was the one thing they didn't want us to do when we came here? Was to learn to read.
We could already read when we came here.
Huh?
We could already read when we came here.
I know, but they didn't teach us, a lot of people, to learn how to read, and those that
You know why they came to get us? You know why they came to get us? Because they were dying.
Right.
They didn't know how to do anything over there. So they went for the greatest people, the most prosperous people of all time.
Right.
Us.
And the way they
Who can read many languages. We're not going to talk about medieval Nubia today, but we will next time. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, medieval Nubia can speak, the people there, medieval Nubia, 7 languages.
Right.
7 of them.
Right.
So we definitely could read. I don't want you to get away with, I can't let you get away with that. We definitely could read. Keep going.
Where did they find that picture?
Which one?
The
This one?
Yeah.
This is in Egypt. Yep. Isn't that ironic?
Do you know
They want us to know.
the basic difference between Christianity then and Christianity now?
Big difference. That's why I went back to this screen right here, and I was saying how underneath Christianity, with Christianity being the dominant spiritual system in Ethiopia at the time, they're top 3 in the world. So it's all about that interpretation. When Europe colonizes Christianity and puts its own little King James spin on it, and then comes over here telling you turn the other cheek, all kind of other stuff, that's not the proper interpretation. And by the way, in Aramaic, turn the other cheek isn't talking about literally getting slapped, you turn the other cheek.
Right.
It's talking about criticism.
Right.
When someone criticizes you, you let that slide, because it's not that important.
Right.
That's the real definition, the real interpretation of the scripture. But they use that against us. We'll get more into it in phase 2. Did you want to add to it? Do you want to say something? Not right now? Okay. Tyrone? Okay, all right. We'll get off that. How much time do I have?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Till 7:50?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 1 minute. You gonna be ready? 1 minute? All right, cool. So now, after King Izana comes along, I'm gonna finish this right here and we'll be done. Actually, I'm not gonna finish that. I'm not gonna finish. I'm gonna wait. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna go to you now. I'll do this part and then we'll come to you, so you can get ready. You in? Because Marita, she's like, I don't want to talk. Emperor Caleb comes after King Izana. Again, Axum was one of the top in the world. He built something called the Deborah Damo. I don't have a picture of it because when I tried to get one off the internet, it wasn't giving me accuracy, and I'm not going to put it up there if it's not right. So if you get a chance in your spare time, Deborah Damo, I know on one part, to even get to it, they put a rope, because it's on the side of a cliff. And you have to literally climb the rope to get to it. So this is why it's such a high tourist attraction, because no one's been able to get up there and tamper with it too much. But you literally have to climb about 30 feet on a rope to get up to it. You can Google it when you get a chance. Yep, Mount Damo is what that means. So with Axum, in the land of Yemen, and they control that area too, they're having a civil war. And it's between the Christians and the Israelites. Christians and the Israelites. There's no white people involved, so who are the Israelites that they're talking about? Oh boy. But they're having some issues. Religious issues. The tolerance that Mansa Musa displayed isn't being done in the kingdom of Axum in the land of Yemen. So they're having some problems. General Abraha was sent by Emperor Caleb to go handle the problems on behalf of the Christians, not the Israelites. So Ethiopia was biased toward the Christian side. They go there, he wins. But then, General Abraha, remember, when you don't have tolerance, problems start. He goes and he tries to challenge the pre-Islamic religion that's in Mecca. So before Islam comes along, there's a different spiritual system involved. I'll give you one hint. It's called Allat. A-L-L-A-T. Allat, not Allah. Allat was the main religion in Mecca before Allah comes along. A little hint there with what's going on. Now when he comes in, the people who are not Christian rebel against that, and they team up with Persia. When they team up with Persia, that's when they go to battle with Axum again, and this time Axum can't handle them with Persia backing them up. So now Axum loses the Yemen territory. So now Ethiopia, which expanded across the Red Sea into southern Arabia and into Yemen, have now lost that territory. Now they're isolated to this one section of Ethiopia. Now with me on that. Okay. After Caleb comes Emperor Armah. During his time, in the 600s AD-wise, Islam comes on the scene. So Islam now is associated with Mecca. Ironically, Allah is gone, and now Allah is in place. And Allah was a black goddess, by the way. Or, excuse me, symbolized by a black goddess. Allah. So we go from Allah, that's right. We go from Allah to Allah. Now, when this happens, the states that surround Axum convert to the Islamic tradition, to that religion. When they do that, they refuse to trade with Axum, who are Christians. So they're done trading. You're not taking on Islam, we're not trading with you. And unfortunately, Adelaide, which is the port city, is surrounded by Islamic nations. Nobody would trade, and now Axum starts to decline. Not destroyed, but starts to decline. By the way, I'm going to sneak this in there, I'll come back to it. No one ever defeats Ethiopia. Ever. At any point in time, no foreign group has ever come into Ethiopia and successfully taken it over. Not one time. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'm going to stop right there. Everybody good? What time is it?
7:49.
Ooh, I'm right on. 7:49. So, Miss Amani, if you will come up and explain real quick before we go eat. Explain real quick what you have. Where did I put that? Don't be trying to cheat. Look what I got.
Good evening, everybody.
Oh,
Good evening.
My name is Imani Bryant, and I am a 16-and-a-half-year-old entrepreneur.
Watch out.
My business is called Love Heart Boutique, and in my business we sell bags, shirts, handmade jewelry, and all the shirts say "All My Queen Behavior," so it's for the ladies. Sorry, guys. I started this business with my mom about 2 years ago, and it's been thriving, booming, growing ever since. And on my table today, I'm selling long sleeve shirts and short sleeve shirts, and they all say "All My Queen Behavior." There's 3 different styles also, and the long sleeves are $15, the short sleeves are $12, and there's also homemade jewelry and bags for sale. So please mention it.
All right. I gotta come see the table. From here, it already looks good. See, y'all gonna talk about the food?
Yes.
Tell them what it is. You want them to buy it?
For folks who are hungry, we have some baked spaghetti. It's got turkey sausage and turkey. Real good. We have salads, and Brother David made these like bread knots. Real good.
Okay.
Got some garlic, but it's subtle. Real good.
All right, so we'll take a 10-minute break. What time is this camp? 50? All right, we're back at 8 o'clock. We'll start again. Have your math brain ready.